Do, 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 do. Hello and welcome to today's live YouTube lesson here with me, Richie, on the AM Language YouTube channel. If this is your first time or you haven't yet subscribed, make sure you subscribe to the video and make sure you click on that notification bell, which will tell you whenever we have a new video or whenever we go live. Now, we do go live every day at 4:30. And I got it wrong today. I accidentally went live at 3:30 today instead of 4:30. And it was about 10 minutes in. And then I realized, wait a minute, I've gone early. No. It's so I had to, I forgot about the time sort of thing. For some reason, I went at 3:30, started at 3:30 instead of 4:30. But it is now 4:30 in Malta, and we are live. In today's lesson, we are looking at mind, body, and soul, good advice, bad advice, some interesting language that we can look at, and this will also be more of like communicating meaning, fluency, discussion. Leondino, buon pomeriggio. Welcome to today's lesson. Thank you so much for joining. Arena F, thank you very much for joining. Much appreciated. Privyet. Privyet, thank you very much for joining. So, while we wait for people to join, the reason why I've gone with mind, body, and soul today, I added the soul bit, is that it's a topic that people are covering in pre-intermediate this week. You get to look at some interesting language, which actually I'll make sure that I have that available so we can look at some of that language that you guys would be looking at this week in what's it called, in your lessons. So let me just get that language up so we can dive into some of it. Intermediate comes. Okay, right. And of course I can't find it. This is always the case. Can I find what I'm looking for? That's the question. No, outcomes. Let's try outcomes elementary. No, outcomes pre-intermediate. So I'm just going to see if I can find it. I might have it with me. The reason being is that it means I can look at some language that I can make sure I mention some language that you guys would look at. No, but it should be under downloads. That's the only thing. How are we doing? Okay, so yeah, we're looking at this because I know that it's something that you guys are looking at this week in the pre-intermediate. But we can always change the language, so we don't have to remain at pre-intermediate. But there's quite a few interesting things that we can look at. Good afternoon, Francesca. Thank you very much for joining. I hope you are doing well. I know what I can do. Let's see. Because I was looking at it recently. I just need to make sure I find what I'm looking for. There we go. So now I've found it. Let's see. Mind, body, and soul. Or should I say mind and body? Yeah, so you guys on 9, yes? Yes, unit 9. So let me just quickly fast forward to that, page 78. So I just make sure that I can mention some of the language that you guys are looking at this week. Because there is some good language here. I've taught this particular content quite a few times. There's some good language to look at. So here we are, mind, and I know here it says mind and body. but I'm going for mind, body, and soul. Um, for some obvious reasons. I think let's not forget about that bit. So let's go with the first some important things. This is what I wanted to go with. So let me ask you guys about this. Okay, so we've got Francesca as well. Good afternoon, Leondina and Irina F. What do you guys think of meditation? Okay, that's one of my questions from this. Let's also go with other things that we can. Okay, so um, okay, what is the difference between C? Because it's Thursday today, so I imagine most of you would have looked at this. Placebo. I need the L there. Ba-dum, and what's the other one called? Nocebo. Nocebo. No, that is right. Thank you very much. Nocebos. Yeah. Let's see what you guys think of this. I think it's good to relax, says Francesca. Yeah, meditation. Now, I do know that last week we did look at the conversation to do with habits, hobbies, that sort of thing. So this isn't going to be exactly the same thing. Leondina says, I'm thinking of trying it. Maybe it could be useful, especially these tricky days. This is it. Now, I was talking to someone with whom I live. Notice how I phrased that. Okay, I was talking with someone with with whom I live. Okay, notice the structure. This is the better structure. If you just say I was talking to someone who I live with, okay, that's fine, but not as correct as the first sentence. Okay, so just a little thing about that, okay? Because the reason being is that the person with whom you speak is the object. Remember, if it's an object of your sentence, we're going to go with whom. Who is subject, whom is usually object. Something to just think about. So I was talking with someone with whom I live, okay? With whom I live. And we were talking about the importance of mental health at the moment, especially considering how difficult this situation is. Now, one of the people with whom I live, and this person uh, in particular is originally from India. So if any of you are up to date with your world news at the moment, you would know that the coronavirus in India is having a terrible, terrible effect. They cannot cope at the moment very well. I was a lesson this week, but I didn't understand well. Okay, so you looked at this week, Francesca. Well, not to worry. We can go over it and we can see how we can. If you've got any specific questions, Francesca, about this lesson that you didn't fully understand, just ask me in the live chat, and I can try and answer some of your questions, because it's a unit. So feel free to ask me something to do with this unit. Leondina says placebo has a positive instead of value, I would say effect. Value is going to have a slightly different meaning, whilst nocebo has a negative one. Correct. That is the case. The question is, yes, they have an effect, but is it real or just the mind reacting to what they think ought, or to what they think is the reality? So the question is, yes, they have an effect, and that's correct. Placebo has a positive, nocebo has a negative effect. But is it real, or just the mind reacting to what they think is the reality? And that's the question there. Is it the reality? Let me know what you currently know about that. So, like I was saying, so we've looked at placebo, the placebo effect, and nocebo effect, and we got meditation. Now, the thing with meditation is everyone has their own way of doing it. Me being practicing Catholic, I like to use it with the rosary. But I know plenty of people who try different ways. So I have a cousin in Australia, and she is very much into the meditating scene. She gives classes on it. Lovely woman. She lives. She's from the southwest, so she lives in Melbourne. And she does a lot of meditation classes, especially for businesses. So before the coronavirus, she would offer meditating classes for people in offices. So she would go to the office, she would set up in the office and create a meditating environment for people to relax, which I thought was a really, really interesting way of doing it. And I'm happy to say she was very successful doing it, because offices can be stressful. So to create that space in an office where people can go and relax, it sounds like a really interesting idea. I think she was on to something. Leondina says it's only the mind reacting to what they expect from reality. Yes, Leondina, and that's the case with placebo and nocebo. It's not the actual reality, it's just what they think is the case. Francesca says, I think it's real. Now, if it's related to the question of placebo and nocebo, then it's not actually real. It's just the mind. Now, I'm going to give you a very good example to this. I'm going to talk about an aunt of mine. My aunt is very much on the nocebo side of things. Okay, she will think that something has had a negative effect on her when it hasn't. So she if she has whether it's an operation, a tablet, I can assure you, meaning I can promise you, that she will think whatever she's had, it's made her feel really, really bad. It's not necessarily the case. So she's someone who always thinks it has had a really bad effect on her. I think with something like the vaccine, it's that we do know that with something like AstraZeneca, there are genuine side effects. I remember when I had my first jab, I got all the symptoms of a fever. So there are real side effects to the vaccine. So I think in this case, it can only be a placebo or a nocebo effect. Well, more likely a nocebo one with the vaccine, if we are, maybe if you're really, really scared, you might have a nocebo. There might be a bit of a nocebo effect potentially, but I don't think so. I don't think that's very common anyway. and it's important that people do go and get their vaccine. I would say the side effects of the vaccine is it's worth the side effects, because it's so important to make sure that as a population everyone is protected from COVID. Okay, so yeah, back to meditation. I think this is a really important one. And the other thing is, I think, and this is an important one, being kind to ourselves. It's the mind is quite I think your mind can sometimes be your worst enemy. Like it will look for something negative. So I think this is where physical exercise can be of really good use. And I think yeah, the physical element. So one of the things I have started to do for myself is I thought to myself, right, I'm doing exercise, but I can't go to the gym. So it's difficult to measure your progress as well. I want to try and see if I can find a way to measure my progress. Um, I'm really, I'm really missing uh, sport, like playing football, for example, or going and doing something like Krav Maga. I know someone that I can do Brazilian Jiu Jitsu with at the moment, which is great. But one of the things I've done is I've downloaded the Nike app, so Nike Run, I think it's called, the Nike Run app, and I have found that could be quite a good. Well, it's not the best app in the world, and there are lots of other apps that do it, but being able to measure your exercise is a really good thing. So you get to sort of like you have a goal, and I think this is one of the important things. Always to have a goal always to have a goal. So to have a goal in mind, okay. And I'm going to give you some sound advice that my dad has given me. Now, if I say, um, I'm going to give you some sound advice, in this case, sound means good, okay? So sound advice is good advice. And my dad's advice was, in terms of knowing if you want to know if something is having a good effect or a negative effect, ask the question, how does it impact your goal? So if you want to know if something is having an overall positive or negative effect on you and your life, ask think about how it uh, impacts, okay, another word for effects, impacts you uh, achieving your goal or goals, okay. So if you want to know if something is having an overall positive or negative effect on you and your life, think about how it impacts you achieving your goals. My dad gave me this advice. I think it is sound advice, because sometimes you think to yourself, especially, I would say, during COVID-19 lockdown, lots of uncertainty. We try different things. We're trying to keep health, we're trying our best. And you sometimes think, okay, what I'm currently doing, is this overall having a good effect on me physically, mentally, spiritually, for example? Or is it having a negative impact? And I think this is a really sound advice. Ask yourself the question, what you are doing, is it having a positive or negative impact on you achieving your goals? Which means the first thing is, do you know what your goals are? And I think this is a really important question. Just like with anything, do you know what your mental health goals are? Do you know what your physical goals are? Do you know what your spiritual goals are? Do you know what your social goals are? Your relationship goals are? Your work goals, business goals, whatever, language goals? You're learning English. Do you know what your goals are? And what you're doing, is it taking you closer or further away? And I think that's sometimes, in order to look after our mental health, physical health, and spiritual health, we need to know what our goals are. So I think that's some sound advice. I think that is sound advice. Now, what do you think of this advice? Okay. What do you think of this advice? Is this sound? The next bit of advice, okay? The next bit of advice. Is it sound advice? Okay. You might have heard this many times. Do what makes you happy. Now, just to add a little bit of philosophy to this, a Roman philosopher actually said, his name was Varros, and he said, whatever makes someone happy is the supreme, meaning ultimate, good. Okay, so this was a Varros. This goes back nearly 2,000 years ago. Because this mentality is quite simple. Do what makes you happy. My question to you guys is this. Is this sound advice? Do you think this is good advice to tell someone or to tell yourself? Do what makes you happy. I have been told this by quite a few people in my life. But is it good advice? Is it good for your mental health? Is it good for your physical health? Is it good for your spiritual health? Um, is it good for your relationships? Is it good for your work? Is it good advice? Let me know what you think in the live chat. And then I will tell you what I think at the end. But first, I want to know what you guys think. While you're waiting for that, like I said, guys, if at any point you have questions about what you did look at this week, please let me know. Because I don't want to just guess. There were lots of different things that you guys looked at this week. So if you have any questions, please let me know. Now, one of the things that we can look at here is mind over matter, because this does come into this. So if you have questions about mind over matter, let me know. In fact, I will include this as a question, actually. Mind over matter. Does this mean that, well, I'll wait for it, actually. First, let me know about this, and then we'll talk about mind over matter. This is something that you guys would have looked at this week. It's a phrase. It's on page 82 of pre-intermediate, if you really want to know. But let me know what you guys think, okay? Do you know what your goals are? The next bit of advice is, sorry, we're looking at this. The next bit of advice, is it sound advice? So is this good advice? Do what makes you happy. Let me know what you guys think. And like I said, a Roman philosopher, about 1,300, 400 AD, wrote that whatever makes someone happy is the supreme good, meaning the ultimate good. Now, I would say that today quite a few people might agree with that. And there were, of course, people during his time that definitely disagreed with him. But what do you guys think? Is this sound advice? Is this good for your mind to say, right, what's going to make me happy today? Okay, I'm going to do it. What's going to make me happy? Yeah, I'm going to do it. I think obviously it depends what's the context. For instance, going for a run, yeah, that probably sounds like a good thing. Is that going to make you happy? Yeah, maybe. So in something as harmless as going for a run, it's probably a good thing. But then you've got other problems. For instance, let's say you enjoy gambling. Now, if you, yeah, let's say you enjoy gambling, and winning makes you happy. But in order to win, you have to gamble. Is this good advice to tell someone, okay, yeah, sure, do what makes you happy, go and gamble? So context probably is going to make a bit of a difference here. Um, I can think of quite a few answers. Leondina says, one of my goals is to improve my English, and it makes me happy as it helps me to feel more confident. I think that's really important. I think, again, we need, in terms of happiness, I've read quite a few things on happiness. Um, and again, I'm going to mention my dad in this one, because he gave me he summarized happiness very well, actually, from a medical point of view, because he's a doctor. He said happiness is a state where you are free from um, I think there's two ways of looking at it, because he told me, and I might leave out one particular word which I've put in brackets. He said that happiness is a state where you are free from anxiety. Now, sometimes it might be difficult to be free from anxiety, and sometimes certain things are necessary. But happiness is a state where you are free from unnecessary anxiety. That's a really interesting thing. That was his medical opinion of a state of happiness, being a surgeon. And I think there's a lot of truth to that, because a lot of things need to come into place in order to feel happy. For instance, you might be happy at work, but you might not be happy in your relationship. So you're not going to be completely happy. So I would say, to add to that, it's a state of free of anxiety, but where there's harmony in your life. There's balance, there's harmony. I would add that to it. Evelina says, hi, teacher. I'm very late today. Don't worry about it, Evelina. Thank you for joining. And I think, again, when you talk about happiness, I think you do need to think about your goals. Are you going in the right direction? You know, if you're learning English, are you going towards that goal? If you want to improve your career, it might be difficult. You might be doing something really difficult, but do you know it is going to be better for you to try and do it? I think one of the difficult periods that COVID has shown is, if you want to change, if you want to make a change in your life, it's a little bit harder to make changes in your life during COVID. It's harder to travel, it's harder to move. Finding a new job can be very difficult. I know quite a few people who have been successful in finding new jobs and better jobs. So then it comes down to an attitude as well, and looking after yourself and trying to be positive. So let me know about that, by the way. Do whatever makes you happy. Do you think whatever makes someone happy is the supreme good? Let me know about that. Another thing is mind over matter. Okay, if we say mind over matter, means one, the mind is more powerful than the body, or does it mean, what do you guys think? Okay, when we say mind over matter, does this mean the mind is more powerful than the body? Or does it mean develop your mind to be stronger than your body? Or in fact, is it a little bit of both one and two, whereby we have to try and develop our minds to be stronger than our body? And I would say that's also stronger than our emotions as well, potentially. Francesca says, on uh, on my goals, you don't need the of, either on, just go with on. On my goals is laugh a lot with life and feeling peace. Okay, I think those are good goals to have. Um, I think the importance of feeling at peace is really important. Now, how you go about it, that would be an interesting thing to hear. I know, I mean, look, there's always lots of different ways of well, there's lots of different approaches. Obviously, people can take that they would hope would bring them peace, and so on and so forth. Um, I would say, again, I think it goes back to, if you want sort of that peace, I think one of the really important things there is a question of trying to avoid unnecessary anxiety, things that for instance, like, are you getting worried about something that you don't need to worry about? I think actually in all of this, mind, it comes into like mind over body sort of thing as well. So let's see what people have said. Leondina has said 3. If you agree with Leondina, let me know if you think it's 3. Evelina also thinks it's 3. Okay, well, I can tell you guys the answer here is mind over matter. Yeah, the answer is a bit of both. Yes, we want to develop our mind to be stronger than our body, which is important. That includes, our mind being stronger than our emotion, our physical reaction to pain, and all the rest of it, which makes our mind stronger than our body. So, your body might feel weak, but your mind is still there. Now, this is really important when it comes to health. I'm going to mention my dad again, but my dad used to say that his patients that would recover faster and have a better recovery period were those who were able to have the right attitude, who were able to remain positive, who they didn't let their illness control their mind. They were the ones still driving. It made a really big difference to how they responded to treatment and how they would respond to illness. Now, I can say that I saw this in a cousin of mine who, in her 30s, early 30s as well, unfortunately developed breast cancer. And she had chemotherapy, she had a young child as well. But this was an example of mind over matter. She continued to work. She was self-employed as well. And what we would say in English, she just got on with it. She did not tell herself that she was sick. Um, she knew she was sick, but she didn't tell herself. She didn't wake up and tell herself you are sick. She got up and said, "Okay, yes, I have breast cancer, but that's not going to stop me. I've got a job. I need to go to work. I need to do this." Um, and all the rest of it. She's someone who I admire greatly, actually. A very strong individual, a really, really good example. And I can only hope that her daughter has learned from her. She's a great role model, I would say, in terms of how to deal with difficulty. And so those are just some personal stories in terms of people that I know. So let's see what we're saying over here. Okay, let me ask you guys this. Okay, let's go with this. There was also quite a few bits of language that you guys would have looked at this week. We looked at mind over matter as well. Yes, giving advice. Okay. Giving advice. So let me show you this. Okay, let's see what you guys say. Okay, so what's the missing word? Okay, so here we're looking at um, giving advice. Let's see. Okay, and the last one that we need to look at. Uh, Yoga, for example. I'm going to add yoga in that. Okay, so this is something that you guys would have looked at this week. It's about giving advice. And these are certain structures that we can look at. I just want to see what you guys come out with. Okay. Now, for those of you who didn't have looked at this week, have a little look. I've given you the letters, and remember, it's about advice. So I've given you the first letter of the words that you need to think about. So maybe you set yourself some goals. Why you try getting yourself setting yourself some realistic goals, and maybe you try yoga. Now, so one of the things you do need to think about is your modal verb. Think about your modal verb, okay, in order to complete this. And the other one is it's kind of a strange one. It's like it's a WH question plus a negative in order to make a suggestion and give advice. So it's an interesting structure. So those are the things you need to think about here. Let's see what you come out with. For those of you who are watching, and you're not too, if you do have a pre-intermediate book, it's on page 81. um, and you would be looking at something like you would have looked at exercise 6, 7, 8, and 9, for example. So let's see what you guys come out with. Leondina says 1 is should, 2 is why do you, and 3 is ought to. Well, if you agree with Leondina, let me know. But if you disagree with her on one of them, oh, okay. So Leondina has changed number 2 to why don't you. So if you let me know what you guys think. Do you agree with Lee and Dina? Okay. So yeah, I mean, you here, for instance, you can say, why don't you? You're always then going to go with. Actually, no. Let me wait for you guys to actually give me the answers, confirm, and then we'll look at it. And then this will take us closer to the end of today's lesson. Evelina says that she agrees. Francesca, I think you looked at this week, so let me know what you think, Francesca. And anyone else who might be watching who would have looked at this. I'll give you guys another minute to let me know. Um, so yeah, I mean, look, I would say, like, why don't there's? I really want to go. Actually, let me just wait another minute before I talk about the answers. So yeah, you've got these three, and it's about thinking carefully about your modal verbs, especially. Of course, trying to give good advice and rather than bad advice. Um, I would say, by the way, just to give you guys my opinion on the question I asked earlier, do what makes you happy. I don't think that's very good advice. because it does depend on the context, and I think we should always think about that context, because sometimes what we want in the moment is not good for us. What we think would make us happy won't make us happy. Now, I've learned after 33 years that is definitely the case. I can think of many occasions, many times when I have thought of, oh, this would make me happy, and it turned out it made me miserable, really unhappy. So I think it's important to sometimes, be aware that we might not actually know what makes us happy or what's going to make us happy. Anyway, answers to this. One is should, correct. Okay. Two is why don't you? And three is ought to. Okay. Ought to. So these are three types of structures that we can use to give advice. To make, so you could say, you should try this, or why don't you try that? Why don't you go on holiday, for example? Or you ought to learn English. You ought to take English lessons, for example. So, guys, thank you so much. If you enjoyed today's lesson, make sure you like and share the video. And if you're new, or if you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe to the channel. Click on the notification bell that will let you know whenever there's a new video. And I will see you tomorrow at the same time with another English lesson. Now, tomorrow, thank you, Richard. See you tomorrow. Thank you very much, Leandina. Just to let you know, guys, tomorrow, let's see. Okay, so tomorrow, guys, is Friday, Film English Imperative Language. So join me for that. Evelina says, have a great evening. Take care. You too. Thank you very much. Okay, guys, so that's a good day from me to everyone who has participated in the live chat. Thank you so much. You guys make the lesson. To everyone else, thank you very much for watching. Take care, and I'll see you tomorrow. So, thank you and bye for now.